Welcome to Stitching Up Trouble, a podcast where a quilt retreat owner and a creative quilt designer cross paths and stitch up some trouble together. I am Mary, owner of Coosa Mountain Lodge.
And I'm Heidi Pridemore of the Whimsical Workshop. Hope you enjoy. Hey Mary, we're back for episode 4. How was your week?
My week was great. How was yours, Heidi?
Good, chaotic as usual.
That's how you like it.
Not really, but that's what happens.
So what are you working on this week?
Well, this week I have a client that requested 5 block of the month programs. And he needs the yardages all done in a few days. So I've been working on that.
Nice.
Still working on quilts for H&H, which is the trade show coming up. Mm-hmm. And I am also packing for my quilt retreat next week, which is the one and only retreat where I'm not the entertainment, where I actually get to just go sit and play. So that's what I'm doing. How about you?
Fun. I am working on a new scrap project. That's what's up behind me. I'm trying to get a scrap club going at the Common Thread. So I need to have the sample done first. So I'm working on that. And then I have there are 2 quilts that we're doing for the Stripology Quickies Club at the Common Thread.
Yeah.
So next May will be 2 quilt projects in one. So I've got to get those 2 quilts done. So those are the 3 things that I'm working on right now.
Well, the one behind you is very pretty. For those of you guys who are just listening, it's all rusts and greens and browns and teal. Mm-hmm. It's a great color combination. Very nice. And I wouldn't say it's a scrap. I mean, I know it's a scrappy quilt, but I wouldn't say it's scrappy. It looks very organized for us non-scrappy people. So
thank you.
All right, so this episode, we are going to talk about how we decide how much fabric to buy, which is always a tough question for people because everybody has different budgets, different tastes.
Correct.
You know, the opposite problem is there's nothing there you like, which is a totally different episode.
I don't think I've only ever had that once. I've only walked into one quilt shop ever and been like, I don't think I'm going to buy anything. Yeah.
And see, I walk in a quilt shop and I've seen the fabric like 6-8 months before because of the way I work.
Yeah.
So I walk in, I'm like, oh, this is all old, but it's not.
That's too funny. Yeah. So I thought I would kind of run through how I buy fabric.
Yep.
And then you could kind of give me some pointers and everybody else some pointers on maybe more efficient, effective ways to buy and suggestions like that. So when I walk in a quilt shop and they've got the new collection all out and there's like 30 or 40 bolts or whatever it is in a collection, and I just love the colors. I love the prints. I love like the size of the prints and things like that. I will buy if it's available, I'll buy a fat quarter bundle. And then I will pick probably the large print for an outer border, and then like a tonal or something that reads solid for a small inner border. And that's how I like buy a collection that I love all of it.
And then how much of the outer border and the inner border are you purchasing?
I usually buy at least 1 to 2 yards. If it's a bigger outer border print, I get at least 2 yards. Mm-hmm. And I usually do buy 2 yards of the tonal as well, because that way, if I'm doing something with blocks that I'm going to do sashing or something like that, then I have the option. And then I can also use that for the binding if I decide to. So it's usually 2 yards of each and the fat quarter bundle.
But if they didn't have a fat quarter bundle and you saw, so let me just, so you perspective wise, collections, depending on the company, the average collection is 14 to 18 pieces. And then if you go to Moda does the 30 35 pieces. So there's,
Yeah.
and I don't know, Riley Blake may be another one that does the bigger collections, but most of the
Mhm.
companies every year they're trying to whittle that collection tighter and smaller so they can order more collections and less of one
Okay.
group. So if you were approaching a collection, let's say with 20 fabrics and they did not have fat quarters, how would you purchase that?
I would look for pre-cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So
No
I would look for
pre-cuts
either
are on the table. I'm not going to give you
no
that out.
pre-cuts
There are
on the
no
table.
pre-cuts. You just love the line.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Because not all
So
companies do pre-cuts.
that's true. So so if I like the whole line and there are no pre-cuts, um I will get a half yard of each
Mm-hmm.
and then do, like I said, the big print. I would get 2 yards in a blender or a tonal or whatever. I would get 2 yards of that as well.
Okay.
Um, if there's a stripe in it, I will get a stripe to do the binding or something cool like that. I'll do that for the binding. But yeah, I'll do probably half yards of all of it.
Okay.
I've been known every once in a while to get a full yard of some collections.
Yeah.
So
And that's a lot. Yeah.
that's got to be a special collection.
Right.
So, but
Okay.
yeah, that's how I would do it.
Okay. So
Um,
now what I'm going to do is give you an insight from a pattern designer's perspective. And
okay.
because we design hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of quilts, every one of those
Mhm.
designs has to have a yardage done.
Right.
So after a while, there is a formula that kind of comes out based on the prints. Like I can tell you, like where you are with borders and sashing, spot on. That's where I would
Okay.
go to, especially
Okay.
if it's a directional fabric. And this is something we don't think about because we're excited because we see the fabric.
Yeah.
And then there's this beautiful directional print, and you buy 2 yards, which is 72 inches, but you're going to make a 90
Hmm.
inch quilt. You can no longer cut length of fabric without having to piece it. I don't see there's a
Right.
reason you can't piece it. We piece all our other borders, but so two
Hmm.
yards kind of covers you if you're not paying attention to that. So
Right.
that is
Yep.
one thing. You don't do backgrounds though, right? You're really using that tonal for inner border and sashing.
Um, Usually, but I also will buy, I usually keep on hand a bolt of white and a bolt of black
Mm-hmm.
so that if I need a background,
Mm-hmm.
then
Those
um,
those options.
I have
Yeah.
those available. I think I should add a bolt of cream or off white to that as well because some of the collections will have a cream background instead of a white.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I need to buy a bolt of solid cream for a background.
Right. Well, that's a good one. And then either a very soft gray or a very
Oh,
soft blue. So before the big white
okay.
fabric trend hit 15 years
Hmm.
ago, you wouldn't put white in a quilt. Nobody put white in a quilt. It had fallen out
Yeah.
of fashion, and so we would always use a very soft blue most of the time, or we would use a soft
Okay.
gray. So those are two others. But if you're looking at a fabric and you're looking at it for inner border sashing, 2 yards is great. If you're looking at it for background, depending on the size quilts you make, so that's another thing you have to think
Mhm.
about. Mary makes a certain size. If you make smaller quilts, you can back off on these, but background fabric, if you look at a quilt and you're going, I'm going to use this, I would, at that point, I would push that to 3 yards if it's going to appear in every
Mhm.
block. Because
Right. That makes sense.
yeah, because once you start, you're sunk because fabric lines only stick around for 6 to 8 months, and then you're on
Hmm.
Etsy or eBay trying to find your collection.
Right.
But
Yep.
how we look at a collection is for simplicity, let's say 12-piece collection. You're always going to have your main print, which usually is going to be a larger print. You're going to have, maybe they'll have you throw a panel in, but for this example, no panel. We're not going to put that in. So there'd be 1 to 2 large prints. And then there's 3 to 4 medium prints.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could be 4 to 6 tonals or small prints or little accent pieces. And then usually you put in 1 or 2 what I call a zinger fabric. It's the one
Okay.
fabric that kind of like your stripe for an inner border, or
Mm-hmm.
it can be very, very colorful, pulling all the colors from the group into this one piece,
Okay.
but it's not the main fabric. So if you think
Okay.
about that way, you really only have 4 categories to buy yardage from: big print, medium print, tonals or small print, and then the zinger.
Mm-hmm.
So then what I do is I'm like, okay, like you said, outer border 2 yards. Medium prints, you really want to buy at least a yard to a yard and a half of those because of the size of the print. And it's going to be used in a lot more places in the quilt than you really think
Okay.
about. Um,
Okay.
and then you go into the tonals or the small prints. You do not need all 6. You want to pick 2 to 3 that will accent what you've already picked out. As a
Okay.
fabric designer, we're always giving you multiple options in that department because it will change the overall look of the quilt very quickly by just changing out 1 or 2 of those. You can go more pinks, you can go more blues, you can go more purples, all in one line of
Okay.
fabric. So you need to think about the
Right.
colors that you want to do. And those I usually would say 2 yards of each, because you will find weirdest places that you're like, oh, I need a little more of that or a little more of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Binding, inner borders, smaller borders, you just need a yard. I mean, we write a
Okay.
pattern. It's very rare that any of those are more than a half to 3/4 of a yard.
Okay.
Um, so if you think of it that way, because I know it's easier to go in, especially for the cutter, to say I want a half yard of everything. But then when you go
Right.
home and actually start looking at patterns, if you're trying to plug the pattern in after the fact, you're going to have a ton of one and not nearly enough of the medium prints.
Right.
Medium prints really should be at least 3/4 to a yard. And then if you're going to buy all 6
Okay.
tonals, then go with a half yard, because then it's going to be
Okay.
scrappier, just more
Okay.
colorful. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how I approach it from a fabric designer perspective.
Okay. I like that. So less um, pieces of fabric, but buy more of each. So a larger portion of the medium print.
Yeah.
Um, just pick a couple of the tonals,
Mm-hmm.
buy a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
okay. I like
And if you
that.
look at
I
quilt
like that.
patterns, on average, I mean, we're told as the designer from the different fabric companies and the magazines and the
Mm-hmm.
catalogs, so this is like across the board, keep it to 8 to 10 prints. So if you go in and buy a 20 print collection, you've already got twice as many fabrics as you need for the majority of the patterns you will be finding.
Right.
So unless
And
you,
I have found that. So I did go buy the fat quarter bundle of one of those big
yeah.
collections, and I've actually gotten 2 separate quilts out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, a fat quarter
um,
bundle of a whole collection is
mhm.
way more fabric than you need. If you go by square inch of how much fabric you've
Yeah.
purchased and how much fabric you would put in a queen size quilt, you will always get much, much more. Unless, I'm going to do my caveat, unless you're paper piecing, or really just like randomly scrappy, you're cutting it up
Right.
and you have a lot of waste. But
Right.
yeah, fat
Right.
quarter bundles,
Paper piecing or
yeah.
probably fussy cutting as well.
Right, fussy cutting.
Mhm.
See, I'm on a smaller budget than you, but if I really love a collection, I go with the 10-inch squares, because I know if I'm going to use the entire collection in a quilt,
Right.
a 10-inch square pack of 42 inches or 42 squares is enough,
Hmm.
more than enough square inch per piece
Yeah.
to get a
Yeah.
lap or a larger quilt. We don't think about it because it's this little tiny thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can certainly get if you only want one quilt, skip the fat quarter bundle, go for the layer cake. That would
Yes.
be
And that's what I do if I only kind of like, I get the fat quarter bundle if I really, really, really like the fabric.
okay.
If I like the whole
Mm-hmm.
collection, um, I will either do a jelly roll or the 10-inch squares
Mm-hmm.
plus the yardage for the border and binding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I make that choice depending on what kind of fabric it is. So if I
Mm-hmm.
really love like the big print,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll go with the 10-inch square so that I get more of that effect of that print.
Right.
If it's, a smaller scale print and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, quite as important to have that, then I'll do the jelly roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So yeah, so pre-cuts are really lovely. They're really, really fun. I am
mhm.
such a sucker for those little charms, the 2.5-inch square sets. I will walk into a quilt shop and buy 3, 4, 5 of those. I have a whole
Yes.
cabinet of them. Ask me the last time I used them in a project.
I'm going to out a friend of mine. I have a very dear friend who collects them. She'll know who she is. She buys 4 of everyone,
Oh
of
wow!
all the ones that she can find, like the ones that she
She
likes, the
buys
ones that
4
she
of the
can
same
find,
one.
4 of the same one.
Why doesn't she just buy a layer cake?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, all right.
She likes collecting the little ones.
They're so cute. I mean, I don't know. You take
Yeah,
anything,
they're
you
very
shrink it
cute.
down, it's cute. Look at a dog. You get a puppy, it's adorable.
Right?
Then you get this big dog.
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
still adorable. I'm a dog person. Nobody come
Yeah.
after me. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's
So,
then you had another one, didn't you? Like if you kind of
yeah.
liked it. And then there was a third one.
If
The
I
blue
like some of the prints.
one.
So, what I'll do is pick 3 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I typically try to get one from each of those categories, from the large print, the medium print, and the tonals,
Right.
or um, you know, try, like, I'm not trying to do all large print or all medium. I try to mix it up a little bit. I pick 3 and I get 2 yards of each of those.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of those 3-yard quilts.
Right.
Um, I find that they're too small when I make them
Mm-hmm.
with just 3 yards. So I double it. I
You
get two
double it.
yards of each.
Yeah.
And then if there's a really good border print, then I'll buy that. I'll buy 2 yards of that as well. So
Well, now the
that's
other
eight
thing that
yards.
I mean, this is just a snapshot of how we buy fabric, but one of the big things I think we've left out is we're talking about print size, large, medium, small, tonals. We haven't talked about color. Because when you
Right.
pick from a collection, you also, the most important thing when you buy a collection of fabric or you're looking at a collection of fabric or I'm designing a collection of fabric is
Mhm.
value. You need to make sure you have your lights, your mediums, and your darks. They're really, really
Correct.
important because I did this with Moda when I first started and didn't really understand. I bought all of their Moda Dots collection. It was very early. This is like 25 years ago. And I made a whole quilt out of this. They were all medium value, all the same print size. It was the ugliest quilt I had ever made. And I learned so much from that. So when you are
Mhm.
also picking large print, medium print, small print, make sure
Mhm.
you at least buy your biggest amount of the lighter or the quieter value, and then like if it's a
Okay.
darker or stronger color, unless that's your dominant in the quilt, that would be in the middle. So you want to think of light to dark. Light you're going to use probably a lot more of. Unless it's a dark quilt, then you're going to need more dark. And
Right.
then make sure if you can't see value yourself, get a value tool. We sell one that's like a little daisy with a keychain. And the keychain you can look
Mhm.
through at the quilt shops. Look at your fabrics when you pick them and make sure they're light, dark, and medium in relation to what you're purchasing. Your project will be
Right.
much, much stronger. Now, if the fabric designers did their job, which some do, some don't, it will
Mhm.
already have value within the whole collection. But if you're
Right. Yeah.
piecemealing it, then make sure you're pulling them out for the right value because
Yeah.
that's really, really important. And we could do a whole talk on that.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's for future
Right.
reference. But I
Well,
just don't
I
want to leave
think,
that out.
yeah. So I don't know if everybody can see the quilt that I have up behind me on my design wall. I originally started with just doing the blocks, and I was going to alternate um, blocks with green on the outside and blocks with brown on the outside. And it
Mm-hmm.
just looked so flat when I laid it all out together.
Mhm.
And then I decided to add the sashing, and it definitely gave it another dimension. So adding that light, because I basically had darks and mediums, and
Yeah.
it was not
There's
appealing. It was very
yeah,
muddy.
because
So,
the light gives your, so it's all like woodland colors with a little bit of rust in
mhm,
it. And if you put, I could see where like if you put those blocks together, they would kind of wash each other out. She does
mhm,
have darks and mediums going, but by adding in a cream sashing, you've just given the whole thing some life by giving it
yeah,
a little light. And so, just when you're shopping for fabric, that is the one of the things we overlook. Just like we do directional prints, we overlook directional prints, which can be the bane of some people's existence. Um, look
mhm,
for your value. Your value is really, really important. And you don't have to have a whole college course to figure it out. You just, just understand that you need to look at light, medium, and dark. So, but yeah, the quilt behind you is going to be beautiful. Our listeners can't see it, but our viewers can. And if you guys want, we are all on YouTube as well as podcasts. So you can go see what we look like.
yes, we are. You can check us out. Okay, so you talked a little bit about fabric collections and how they work. I have bought one of those big collections of fabric, and it seems to have two different colorways in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that normal? Is that
Well, from a fabric designer perspective, that usually means your fabric is selling well when they're like, we want the same artwork in different colorways because they're going to have to
okay?
print more fabric. The trick to doing those lines is, and we do a lot of work with Liberty fabric. Liberty, every
Mhm.
collection, it has to work cohesively together, all the colors. All the colors need to play well in the same pool, which is why you would buy it as a full collection. And then what they do is they create a mini collection within a collection by creating colorways. So usually you'll
Oh,
have
okay.
it where it's pink, blue, yellow is the big collection, but you'll have the three main prints in the three colorways, and then all the
Mhm.
coordinates should work with all three main prints. So you could divide it into three smaller collections. And that's
Gotcha.
because quilt shop owners have so much shelf space. They can't bring
Yeah.
every collection in at 20 or 30
Right.
SKUs. So the fabric companies have gotten smart enough to say, we will create a collection within a collection so that they can only take 6 or 8. They don't walk away from the
Gotcha.
line. You're giving them an
Right.
option. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
how that works. Most of
Okay.
what you guys see in the shop is driven just like everything else by
Yeah.
the logistics of a shop owner and how well the fabric companies can sell the fabrics. So that's colorways within colorways. And if they could put all the colorways in a fat quarter bundle and Mary will buy it, they will do that.
Yep. I will do that.
Yes.
Well, that's all very helpful information to me. It'll definitely change how I look at some of these collections and what I'm picking. It's very helpful for when I like the whole collection. I now have permission that I don't have to buy the whole collection. I just need to buy more of
Lesser
fewer
pieces.
of the fabrics. Yeah, I
Now
like that.
that being said, you're trying to do a scrap club. You're doing a
Hmm.
scrappy quilt club, so you may still want to buy the whole collection. I am not saying do not buy it, but I am saying
Yes.
that if you
Yes.
are in faced with the dilemma of I want that collection, but I don't necessarily need 20 fabrics, how do I
Right.
narrow
Yeah.
that down? So, I mean,
Yeah.
I personally can't even tell you the last time I went and bought quilt fabric. So,
Well, that was one of my questions for you was
yeah.
have you ever like when was the last time you bought fabric for your own project?
I couldn't even tell you. I am notorious for, I guess when we went to, when I was there in November, we made those little bow bags. And
Oh
I had to
yeah.
have fabric because I wasn't home and we were
Right.
going to make the bags spontaneous. And you go on a retreat and there's a spontaneous, hey, let's make this project. I bought the fabric for my $100
Mhm.
tote bag because, I bought a prepackaged, pre-cut thing, and yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't think about how much money
Okay.
you spend on the fabric in the project. But for someone who doesn't buy it, that was
No.
like, woo, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you get a lot of fabric sent to you from
Yeah,
the companies that you design for because
right. And to be
you
very
need to have it.
honest, when I am done with work, I do not quilt for relaxation. As you know, I do every other
Yeah.
craft known to man, because
Hmm.
my job is to get quilts made for all these people,
Yeah.
and they're all out of different collections, and so quilting has become a job, not a hobby for me. So this is
Right.
interesting because we have the two different perspectives of it. I'm a
Yeah.
little jaded in
Absolutely.
the quilted world. So,
Well,
but yeah.
you don't come off as jaded.
Oh no, I
So,
still love fabric. I still love buying
mhm.
fabric. If I see something I do like, I will not buy the whole collection. I will buy that
Right.
one piece. And right behind me, there's 5 bins. That is my stash. That is all the fabric I own, unless you look at the bolts. I get rid of my
Wow.
stash every 2 to 3 years. I donate it all to charity and start
Wow.
all over again. So I collect fabric and rotate it, but I don't usually use it.
Wow. That's impressive. I I have a stash
Well,
because
yes,
I
but
buy
this is your
collections.
hobby.
It is. It
I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
this is what you love to do in your downtime.
Hmm.
And it was what I loved to do in my downtime a couple thousand quilts ago. But now I'm like, it's a job and I love
Yeah.
doing it and I'm very lucky to do it. But
Hmm.
my approach to it's a little different. So,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
if you want to ask any questions about this or the color or what we do, just put them below and we'll answer them.
Yeah. We will.
So, but
We will.
we did get all of the podcasts up, so you guys have seen them. 1 through 3 is available. Uh, we are excited to do this. We want to thank everybody who's watched and listened to these and supported us. This is definitely a pet project for Mary and I, and we
Yeah.
hope to keep doing this. We're planning on one a week for quite some time. Next
Hmm.
week, I will be at Quilt Camp, but I was still planning on recording from Quilt Camp, which may be
Yes.
interesting. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so would love to hear below what people think. Only nice comments though.
Email us directly with the criticisms. Put the nice ones out publicly.
And I don't
Um,
know a whole lot about Spotify or iTunes, but do whatever you're supposed to do so
yeah.
we become popular.
Like, follow, share, subscribe, all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I will also be at a retreat next week.
Oh, you will. So should we
I
take a week
will.
off?
Um,
Well, when's your retreat? Let's do that.
let's,
Is it Wednesday to
the
Sunday?
Wednesday to Sunday. It's a
Okay.
group of friends that are coming to stay at the lodge with me.
Is that the one my
So it might be
sister's
interesting.
coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
gonna hang out with my sister all week.
Yep.
Lucky buck.
Very
So
lucky. Me. I don't know if she's lucky, but I am.
she is very,
So
very lucky. So that's Wednesday to
yeah,
Saturday or Wednesday to Sunday?
it's Wednesday to Sunday, but Sunday is Easter Sunday, so some people are leaving early,
Okay.
some people are not. But I will be at the lodge at a retreat. But it might be fun to kind of maybe give a little bit of tour while
Yeah,
we're there.
definitely, because
So
I will be there teaching in November. If people are interested in joining us, please, I think
mm-hmm.
their space is still available. Come join us.
Yep,
You'll
yep,
have
there are
Mary and I to
spaces.
entertain you. You just can reach out to Mary at kusalodge.com. No, what's your
Yeah.
email?
My email is mary@coosamountainlodge.com.
So you can email her for all the details
Mm-hmm.
on that. Maybe one of the ones coming up, we'll talk about the retreat projects that are coming up.
That'd be a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll get pictures of those out on our websites and social medias. That's coming soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I hope you have a great time at camp.
yes, you
Um,
too.
somebody's got a big day tomorrow, if I'm correct.
You are correct. I do. My
Happy
friend was here
birthday.
for 2 weeks, and the fact that my birthday is tomorrow just is kind of. I've been entertaining and with my
Yeah,
friend for 2 weeks, so I haven't really
yeah,
thought about what's coming up this week. I'm like, oh
yeah.
wait, yeah. So, hey, I'd
Well,
rather
happy
have a
birthday.
birthday than not.
That's true. That's true. Well, enjoy it. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks again for chatting with me. And I really appreciate all the good information that you gave me today.
Oh,
That
I love doing this with you. And just again, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think. And we will see you. Apparently, we will see you next week from 2 different retreats. So we'll see how that goes.
awesome.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Bye.